Hello students, in this module we discuss teaching grammar. Grammar plays a vital role in sentence construction and the accuracy of the language. Scott Thornbury says, grammar is partly the study of what forms are possible in a language. Traditionally, grammar has been concerned almost exclusively with analysis at the level of the sentence. Thus, grammar is a description of the rules that govern how a language's sentences are formed. Grammar is one of the most difficult aspects of a foreign language to master. It is defined as the rules that govern how a language's sentences are formed. Therefore, these days we say grammar is the backbone of a language. So, learning grammar thus plays a vital role in students' enhancement of the language. And the main objective of this particular series, we are going to critically examine the issues and strategies of teaching grammar in language classrooms in the context of English language teaching. The objectives therefore are to realize the need for a change in the methodology of teaching of grammar in the current teaching learning process. We will discuss the following aspects of teaching grammar. They are inductive and deductive teaching approach, tenses, parts of speech, active and passive voice, and finally direct and indirect speech. So, let us look at some of the issues that are related to teaching grammar. There are many teaching approaches to grammar, but we discuss two grammar teaching approaches or practices, namely deductive grammar teaching approach and inductive grammar teaching approach. Suppose you are teaching English grammar for the beginners, how would you begin? It is always advisable to follow a method based on the level and the need of the learners. Now, let us look at deductive approach. In deductive approach, teaching through rules will be more helpful, meaning the rule is provided followed by the provision of examples in which rule is applied later. In the inductive approach, teaching through more examples where students are provided with several examples from which a rule is inferred then. So, the example in the inductive approach are realia, actions, worksheets, which can often be structured to inductively lead to students to a grammar rule. Authentic texts. After listening to a dialogue or reading a text, students can answer questions to highlight certain grammatical structures. These then may be used to deliver rules. Then we have dialogue, recorded conversations, drills, where activities that are structured to allow only one correct answer. Then we have exercises, namely open-ended grammar activities. Now, let us look at some of the practices of inductive approach. So, we need to keep in mind the following points when we practice inductive approach. Practice leads to the creation of a continuum ranging from text manipulation activities to text creation activities. Provide students with genuine opportunities to communicate using language that is known. These tasks differ from text creation activities in that the students are not restricted in the language that is used. As a result, because of the students are not focused on the use of a particular structure, tasks must be designed to ensure that the desired structure is utilized. Next, listing, brainstorming, fact finding, ordering and sorting, sequencing, ranking, categorizing, classifying, comparing, matching, finding, the differences between and the similarities between them. Also problem solving, sharing personal experiences and creating tasks. So these are some of the points that we need to keep in mind while teaching through inductive approach. Let's take the negative structure. In the negative structure, she has not sung a song. They have not sung a song. So this is the negative. Now let's look at the WH question. In the WH question, we can ask, what have you sung? Where has she sung? Now let's look at yes or no question. Has she sung a song, or have you sung a song? So for third person singular, it is has, and for first person and second person and singular and plural, it is have. Now let's move on to present perfect continuous tense. Present perfect continuous tense also has 6 structures. Number 1, positive structure. I have been singing a song. It's a positive. I have not been singing a song. It's a negative structure. Where have I been singing a song? It's a WH question. And have I been singing a song is yes or no question. Now when do we use present perfect continuous tense? Present perfect continuous tense is used to speak about any action that began in the past and still it is continuing even now at the time of speaking. So these are different structures, rules and examples for present tense alone. Now let's look at past tense. Past tense also has different structures, different rules and different examples. Let's look at the first one, simple past tense. Now let's look at an example. Simple past tense, I sang a song, and the structure is subject plus verb to plus object. Now what is the rule for simple past tense? Any action that happened in the past, maybe yesterday or last week, last month or a decade ago or even a century ago. So whatever happened in the past, we use simple past tense, and we can give any number of examples. For example, I read a novel yesterday, or I watched a movie last month. So this is positive sentence. Now let's look at negative sentence. Negative sentence slightly has a different structure. In the negative sentence, I didn't sing a song. Now here many people make a mistake. I didn't sang a song, they say. That's a grammatically a wrong sentence. I didn't sing a song. Therefore, the structure is subject plus didn't plus V1 plus song object. Therefore, whenever you have simple past tense, remember in the negative sentence you have to say I didn't eat any apple or I didn't eat lunch. You cannot say I didn't ate. I didn't ate would be a wrong sentence grammatically. Now let's look at yes or no question. Did you sing a song? Did you sing a song is yes or no question. Yes or no question begins with did, and in the simple past tense you have to begin with the auxiliary verb did. Did you go to market? Did you watch a movie? Etc. So these are the 6 structures in simple past tense. Now let's look at past continuous tense. Past continuous tense also we have 6 structures. Now when do we use past continuous tense? Any action that was happening sometime in the past. For example, I was singing a song, or I was reading a novel when you came to my house. Now let's look at the structure. The structure is subject plus auxiliary verb plus main verb plus ing plus object. Now let's look at negative structure. In the negative structure, I was not singing a song. First person, third person singular, it is was, and first person plural, second person singular and plural, third person plural, we have to use were. For example, we were not singing a song. Now let's look at WH question. Why was I singing a song, or why were you singing a song? This is example for WH question. Now let's look at yes or no question. Was I singing a song? Were you singing a song? Was she waiting for you? Now if you notice, all these begin with auxiliary verb was or were, depending on the subject. Now let's look at past perfect tense. The past perfect tense. When do we use the past perfect tense? Any action that happened before another action. For example, I had sung a song already, meaning I had done other works before I began singing the song. And the structure for past perfect is subject plus auxiliary verb had plus verb 3 plus object. Let us look at another example. Before I went to the station, the train had already left. So, there are two actions. One action happened before the another action. So, the action that took place first is spoken in past perfect and the second action takes simple past tense. Now, let us take negative structure. In the negative structure, I had not sung a song or I had not waited for you. Now, let us move on to WH question. Where had you sung a song? When had you sung a song? So, this is the example for WH question. Now, let us look at yes or no question. Had you sung a song? Had you waited for me? Or had your mom cooked chicken biryani today? So, these are examples for yes or no question. Now, let us move on to past perfect continuous tense. In the past perfect continuous tense, the following is the structure: subject plus had plus been plus main verb plus ing form plus object. Let us look at the example. I had been singing a song. Now, when do we use past perfect continuous tense? Any action that started in the past, continued in the past and finished in the past, we speak in past perfect continuous tense. Let us discuss an example. I had been singing a song. So, the structure is I subject, had auxiliary verb, been be form, singing is verb 1 plus ing form and song object. Now, this is positive example. Let us look at negative example. I had not been singing a song. Now, let us look at WH question. Where had she been singing a song? Why had you been waiting for me? So, this is an example for WH question. Now, let us look at yes or no question in past perfect continuous tense. Had I been waiting for you? Had you been singing a song? So, these are examples, structures and rules for past perfect continuous tense. Now, let us look at future tense. What is a future tense? Any action that is going to happen the next moment, maybe next hour or tomorrow, next week, maybe after 10 years. So, whatever happens in the future, we speak in future tense. There are 4 tenses in the future tense. The first one is simple future tense. Let us look at the structure first. Subject plus will or shall plus verb 1 plus object. I will sing a song. This is a positive example for future simple tense. Now, let us see the rule for future simple. Any action that is going to happen sometime in the future. So, this is the rule for simple future tense. Now, let us look at the negative structure for simple future. I will not sing a song or I won't sing a song. Won't here is a contracted form. You can either say I will not sing or I won't sing a song. So, let us look at the WH question. Where will you sing a song? Why will you sing a song? So, after WH you have will or shall followed by subject plus V1 plus object plus a question mark. So, now let us look at yes or no question. In the yes or no question, you have to begin the sentence with will or shall. Will you sing a song? Will you wait for me? Or will she cook biryani tonight? So, these are the examples for yes or no question in simple future tense. Now, let us look at future continuous. When do we use future continuous? Any action that is going to happen sometime in the future, in a particular time in the future. Now, let us look at the structure first. Subject plus auxiliary verb plus be form plus main verb plus ing form plus object. Now, let us look at one example. I will be singing a song. Now, let us look at a negative example. I will not be singing a song. Now, let us look at WH question. How will I be singing? Where will I be singing? What will I be singing? So, these are the examples for WH question. Now, let us look at yes or no question. Will I be singing a song? Will you be waiting for me? Will you be cooking chicken biryani tonight? So, these are the examples and structures for future continuous tense. Now, let us look at future perfect. In the future perfect, we can have the following structure: subject plus auxiliary verb plus have plus main verb V3 plus object. Now, let us look at one example. I will have sung a song. Now, any action that will have completed sometime in the past. So, this is the rule for future perfect. Now, let us look at the negative. The negative structure, I will not have sung a song. Now, let us look at WH question. When will you have sung a song? Now, let us look at the yes or no question for future perfect. Will you have sung a song? Will you have waited for me? Will you have completed this project tomorrow by this time? So, these are the structures and examples for future perfect tense. Now, let us look at the last tense, future perfect continuous tense. In the future perfect continuous tense, we have the structure subject plus auxiliary verb plus have plus been plus main verb plus ing plus object. Now, let us look at an example. They will have been singing a song. Now, let us make it negative. They will not have been singing a song. Why will they have been singing a song? Will they have been singing a song is an yes or no question. So, these are 72 structures that we have. Now, the question we can ask, how many parts of speech are there? There are altogether 8 parts of speech. Now, understanding these parts of speech is very vital for students as they move toward more complex writing skills. Thankfully, teaching them about the different parts of speech can be a lot more fun. Through interactive and engaging lessons, students will quickly pick up on the parts of speech. Now, try the ideas below to get started. Now, teach parts of speech through a poetry. Use poetry as a way to engage students and give them a trick for remembering the parts of speech. Now, let us look at the 8 parts of speech poem. A noun is the name of anything, as a school, garden, toy or swing. An adjective tells the kind of noun, as great, small, pretty, white or brown. Instead of the nouns, the pronouns stand or hand, his face, your arm, my hand. Verbs tell of something to be done, to read, write, count, sing, jump or run. How things are done, the adverbs tell, as slowly, quickly, badly or well. Conjunctions join words together, as men and women, wind or weather. The prepositions stand before, as a noun, as at or through the door. The interjections show surprise, as wow, how pretty, oh, how wise. Teach sometimes these parts of speech with games. You can use a lot of games to teach parts of speech, and you can even teach these parts of speech through small skits. Active voice is the voice used to indicate that the subject of the sentence is performing the action or causing the action. Passive voice is used when the subject is the recipient of the action. Strong writing uses active voice. Passive voice should only be used in the following instances: when intentionally hiding the subject of the sentence. For example, a politician might say, mistakes were made, when intentionally trying to minimize the guilt of the subject. For example, a cheating husband might respond, adultery was committed by me, when passive voice better emphasizes the main point of a passage. For example, children were harmed by unlicensed bus drivers. Knowing when to use active and passive voice does not mean students will use it correctly. Show them through demonstration. Teacher stands at one side of the room and throws the keys on the floor, telling the class to make a sentence about what was just done and to begin the sentence with the teacher's name. For example, the teacher gets the following sentence, Miss Vani threw the keys on the floor. Now you can ask the students to make it passive. Then the teacher writes the sentence on the board and the students can come up with a passive voice. The teacher says the subject of the sentence is, and the students can say Miss Vani, yes, and threw is the verb. Now the teacher picks up the keys and does the same thing again, but this time the teacher tells them they must begin sentence with the keys. So it takes only a few minutes longer for them to get the keys were thrown on the floor by Miss Vani. So this is a passive voice sentence. The teacher writes that sentence on the board also. So now the students are perfect with active voice and passive voice. Therefore, the teacher needs to demonstrate practically by sometimes making use of the objectives that are available around. Let us see what is direct and indirect speech. We often have to give information about what people say or think. In order to do this, you can use direct or quoted speech or indirect or reported speech. Let us see what is direct speech. Saying exactly what someone has said is direct speech. Sometimes it is also called quoted speech. Here, what a person says appears within quotation marks and should be word for word. For example, she said, quotations begin, today's lesson is on presentations. Indirect speech. Indirect speech does not use quotation marks to enclose what the person said, and it does not have to be word for word. When reporting speech, the tense usually changes. This is because when we use reported speech, we are usually talking about a time in the past, because obviously the person who spoke originally spoke in the past. The verb therefore usually have to be in the past tense too. For example, I am going to cinema, he said. It is in direct speech. In the indirect speech, we can say he said that he was going to the cinema. So the tenses change. As a rule, when you report something someone has said, you go back a tense. Now, if you take the example in present simple, she said it is cold. When you change simple present tense into simple past, she said it was cold. Let us take another example in present continuous. Present continuous becomes past continuous. She said, I am teaching English online. She said that she was teaching English online. Present perfect becomes past perfect. She said, I have taught English. She said she had taught English. Present perfect continuous changes to past perfect continuous. For example, she has said, I have been teaching English for 7 years. She said she had been teaching English for 7 years. And simple past becomes past perfect. She said, I taught English online yesterday. Now that changes to past perfect. She said she had taught online yesterday. Past continuous becomes past perfect continuous. She said, I was teaching earlier. She said that she had been teaching earlier. Now when you change from past perfect to past perfect, there is no change from direct speech to indirect speech. And even it is same in past perfect continuous to past perfect continuous. She said, I had already been teaching for 5 minutes. In indirect speech, there is no change. She said she had been teaching for 5 minutes.